Even more proof that Jayden Daniels is wise beyond his years. A possible first-time Pro Bowler on the offensive line, and why the Commanders' new starting running back had a very special focus during this offseason. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the final edition of the road tripping version of the Full Command Show. My name is Grant Mitchell, and we are here to talk about everything involving the Washington Commanders. It's a week later, and somehow I'm still sick, which I don't quite understand. And I was at a wedding this weekend, so hopefully everybody made it out unscathed. Like I mentioned, this is my final day on the road. I will be back home tomorrow, which means, as always, the daily uploads will continue to, I should say resume, because we did take the weekend off. But again, for a good reason. Saw my future sister-in-law getting married, so congrats to her and her new husband. Like I said, with me going back home tonight, the daily uploads, multiple daily uploads, 2-3 videos a day. You're going to get all of that, so don't worry. I appreciate your patience throughout this process. And honestly, I've missed you guys. I do love making these videos. And most importantly, I love getting your opinions. I love reading the comment section and hearing what you have to say about everything that I have to say. So, like I mentioned, we got a really cool show coming up today. We got some quotes and some insights as to what Jayden Daniels was up to during the offseason. We're going to hear from Brandon Coleman from his Next Man Up interview with Brian Colbert Jr. And also, we're going to talk about Chris Rodriguez Jr., who I've said for a long time now, despite being a 6th-round rookie, despite being on the practice squad for 2 years, 6th-round rookie, 6th-round pick, despite being on the practice squad for 2 years, he's probably going to get the first carry of the Commanders season, which means technically he is their starting running back. And we're going to find out how he prepared to get ready for this big NFL season, and did such a good job, by the way, that the Commanders were comfortable trading Brian Robinson Jr. to the 49ers. So let's go ahead and let's jump into this real quick, guys. Make sure you do hit that like button. That is the easiest way you can support me. It's game week, okay? I mean, after all those months of wait, and we had to endure the Terry McLaurin stuff, we had to talk about the preseason, the training camp, all that stuff. We're finally at the real show. It is game week, so do drop a like on this video. Make sure that you are subscribed if you are not already, because with that weekend pause over, we are now back to being the fastest growing community in Commanders Nation. Okay, let's talk about Jayden Daniels here. So this is from an article which was published on the Washington Post, but it was by the other article is coming up later. This is from a Washington Post article. This was behind a paywall, and I didn't get to actually see who the author was on this, so I do feel really bad that I can't accredit them. But if you have a Washington Times subscription, please do go check it out, because anything about Jayden Daniels is always going to be interesting, because he's not a very available guy to the public. And that's what this quote says here. So I saw a little screenshot of the article. It says, quote, "Over the past year, Daniels turned down more opportunities than he accepted. His team filters most of them. He turned down several television show appearances during the offseason. He filmed a commercial for NFL Flag. He has a few corporate sponsorships coming out soon that he cannot talk about yet, but he remains selective. He has discovered a lesson that it takes some athletes years to realize. Agreeing to a 30-second commercial means sacrificing at least a full day of time, and Daniels is fiercely protective of his." That's added to what we've heard from Cliff Kingsbury, which that Jayden is getting to the facility even earlier than he was last year. And it sounded like last year he was showing up at 4:30 in the morning. Now he's getting there even earlier. Kingsbury said he sees him walking off the practice field in the dark of the morning. And Cliff is there, as we know, at 2 to 3 a.m. So if there's one guy who's going to see everything, it's going to be Cliff. And I just, once again, I want to reiterate just how blessed we are. If you are a Commanders fan watching this like I am, then we have to acknowledge how blessed we are to have a player who takes his opportunities seriously. And he didn't have this great rookie year, which by all accounts was the best rookie quarterback season in NFL history. It was the best Commander season in 30 years. It broke a 34-year championship game-less appearance streak. He's not resting on the laurels. The guy basically runs Washington, D.C. right now. Like, let's be totally honest. He's probably the most recognizable guy in the city aside from the president. And he's just remained, it's almost as if he's gotten even more humble. And there's a bunch of jokes online about his mom and how she's constantly intermingling with his personal life and his dating and how he's going to be single forever. And all that stuff can be funny to some people. And it can also be distasteful depending on the joke. But if there's one thing that you can't take away from his mom and his dad and his support system, his friends, even Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., we know how close he is to them. It's that they have done such a terrific job of shaping and then keeping Jayden on the path that led him to being successful. This guy is an incredibly hard worker. He's a great communicator. We heard from Terry McLaurin last week how he was always by his side, always giving him advice during the contract negotiation period. He never throws a fuss, and he's doing stuff like this. He's turning down opportunities to make millions of dollars when right now we know the money that's coming his way. He's going to be making more than $60 million a year probably when he signs his first extension. But right now he's making, I don't know what exactly what it is, but $8, $9, $10 million, which obviously is not a small amount. But if you get offered $1 million and you're making $9 million this year, that's what? That would be a total of 10% of your value for that year if we're just going off of those numbers. And he's turning that down so that he can get an extra day, an extra 2 days of practice going into this season. So, I mean, I'm so excited to see Jayden, especially with the McLaurin stuff over, with Noah Brown being back at practice, with the offensive line upgrades. I said it in a video last week, but there's a legitimate chance the Commanders have the best offense in the NFL, and we're nowhere near that without Jayden Daniels and his continued improvement. So we are, how many days are we? We're 6 days away from the home opener against the New York Giants. I went back and I looked at Jayden's numbers against some common opponents. The Giants, first and foremost, he played them in week 2. If you remember, that's the game where whoever the Giants kicker, I can't remember at this moment, was it Graham Gano? I'm not sure. But the Giants kicker got injured chasing down a kickoff, trying to make a tackle. And so the Giants didn't have a kicker for the entire game. Meanwhile, the Commanders kicked 7 field goals in that game, I think. Am I remembering this correctly? Yeah, I think the Commanders kicked 7 field goals and won 21-18. Jayden didn't have a touchdown. His QBR was only 37.8 in that game. He was 23 or 29 for 226 yards. Wasn't making mistakes, but the team and Jayden did not convert on those key opportunities. But again, it was only his second game of his NFL career, and it was his first win because they got stomped by the Bucs in week 1. Then you fast forward a couple of months to week 9. Jayden goes 15 to 22 for 209 yards, 2 touchdowns with a QBR of 95. That game was pretty much over at halftime. It ended up being closer than it should have been, but very much over by halftime, and Jayden just looked outstanding, looked in rhythm, really did not get much resistance from the Giants. Now, I expect that to be a little bit different this year because despite the offensive line upgrades, I think the Giants are going to generate pressure. I don't see how when you have Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau and Dexter Lawrence and Abdul Carter that you don't to generate pressure. Again, it's going to be a great test for the offensive line. But I wanted to look back at how Jayden did against the teams that created the most pressure. So those teams, if you look at the Commanders' schedule, were the Cowboys, who actually led the league in pressure percentage, and then the Cleveland Browns, who were third. In those games, Jayden had solid counting numbers. He averaged 256.5 yards, but he only had 4 total touchdowns to 3 interceptions. If you take away the 1 rushing touchdown he had against the Cowboys, I believe it was, then he had 3 passing touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So we're not going to find a bunch of areas where we can point to and say, hey, Jayden struggled here, this spot, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But it was those very aggressive blitzes with man coverage on the back end where Jayden had to be willing to have a lower completion percentage and take some risks to actually unlock the big plays. It was in those games where you saw him maybe not struggle, but at least not be at his usual elite standard. So that's also going to be something that's going to be very interesting to see as how his game has adapted and how he's evolved in those situations. And with his VR stuff and just his level of preparation, again, turning down $1 million deals just for 1 day of practice, I have no doubt that he will be more equipped. But just because you know how to do something doesn't mean you're going to do it. So I want to see how he does in week 1. It also helps the Giants don't have a great secondary on the back end. They do have some players, but overall, they're not a very cohesive unit. So it'll be a good test, but also a good opportunity for him to gain some confidence and some momentum heading into the start of his second season. Now let's talk about Brandon Coleman. And Coleman's been an interesting guy throughout this offseason, not just because he's switched positions, not just because he's lining up to a 4-time Pro Bowler in Laremy Tunsil now, but if you remember, maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, I reported on Brian Mitchell saying that if there is a first-time Pro Bowler on this Commanders team, he thinks that it's Brandon Coleman. And that, as if I wasn't already excited enough to see the offensive line and how it looked in its rebuilt form, that made me super stoked just to see what Coleman had to offer. So Coleman was actually on the Next Man Up podcast with Brian Colbert Jr., and here's what he said. He said, quote, "My game has changed so much just playing next to Tunsil. Seeing how he communicates on the field, him being there, it pushes around the whole line. Everyone's constantly communicating. I was able to go to Auburn where he trains at and just hang out with him. I told him I might be here every offseason training with you." And he also talked about how Josh Connerly Jr. being a rookie, getting the opportunity to line up a tackle opposite a player like Tunsil also gives him a tremendous opportunity. And just on a general roster construction standpoint, one thing I do want to say is, who are some of the players that the Commanders are most excited about? Brandon Coleman and Josh Connerly Jr. Well, let's bring in an elite left tackle and Laremy Tunsil and let them learn from them. Excuse me. Let's draft Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane. And I know a lot of people are out on Luke McCaffrey right now, but what are we going to do? We're going to stick them in the same room as Terry McLaurin, and that's how they're going to learn. Okay, well, what about defensively? Who do they love? They love Jordan McGee. Well, he's got Bobby Wagner right there teaching him. And we're going to draft Ben Sinnott in the second round, and here's Zach Ertz here to mentor you. It feels like they've done just an outstanding job of not only recruiting players and not only recruiting leaders, but getting established stars, guys with legitimate staying power in the league, in the same rooms as younger players, regardless of how those players have proven themselves so far. Again, Jalen Lane's a rookie. We haven't seen him. Ben Sinnott, Luke McCaffrey been a little bit underwhelming. Jordan McGee struggled with injuries. I get all of that. But these players that they have potential and they have belief in, they're making sure that they are next to great players so that those players can not only carry the load while the time for the time being and while it's necessary, but they can mentor these younger players and impart all of the wisdom that they have upon them. And I think that's just honestly one of the most underrated components of what Adam Peters has done in his time as the general manager. Now, the move inside to guard for Brandon Coleman, I think, is going to be a really huge positive for him. He played guard and tackle at TCU, guard and tackle in college at TCU. You see what happens when I take 2 days off? I completely forget how to talk. Coleman played guard and tackle in college at TCU. So let's not act as if he is moving positions, but he's not moving to a new position. Obviously, he has great size, 6'4.5", 34 and 5/8 inch arms. That's very close to elite. 35 is pretty much elite. 320 pounds. He had great times in the 40, the vertical leap, the broad jump. I'm really excited to see how the team utilizes him in space with their gap scheme runs. You saw a glimpse of it with that GT counter for Bill Merritt, the 27-yard run against the Bengals. Coleman wasn't involved in that play because he wasn't playing, but it was a left tackle and the left guard pulling. So theoretically, that would be Coleman in that spot. And again, with his athleticism and his size, like let him get ahead of steam and start moving downhill and let him just crash into somebody, and he's going to displace them. Same goes for Josh Connerly Jr., very athletic guy. Tunsil, he's an anchor. He's a stone wall in pass protection, but he's mobile too. Let's not act as if he's a fence post and he's just stuck in the ground. He can get space and move too. And you've heard this addressed by Dan Quinn during the offseason or during the preseason, however you want to define that, if you want to call that the offseason or whatnot. But Dan Quinn has said, I can't wait to see this team moving horizontally, the gap scheme stuff, because you have upgraded speed with Bill Merritt and CRod, who we're going to talk about in 30 seconds here. And you have this agile and mobile offensive line with quick acceleration and good top speed and strength and size. And it just feels as if they are so much more cohesive than they were last year. And don't get me wrong. Again, Adam Peters and the team did a great job of piecemealing the team together with some veterans and some guys who maybe hadn't gotten a bunch of opportunities in the league. Allegretti and Andrew Wiley, were they elite players? No, but did they perform a lot better than backups who don't get on the field? Yes, they looked like reputable starters at a certain time during the season last year. And overall, the offense had success. And you can say the offensive line wasn't great, but if they were awful, then the offense and Jayden would not have looked as good as they did. But with all that being said, the Josh Connerly, the Coleman move, the Tunsil upgrade, I'm really excited to see that. Now, let's close this out by talking about my man CRod, Chris Rodriguez Jr. This is from an article that was published in the New York Times by Nikki Jabvala. She is an athletic writer, and the New York Times owns The Athletic, so I'm guessing that it's probably published in both of them. But anyway, she says, Dan Quinn said that, quote, when somebody can demonstrate over and over again they're willing to put the work in, find the right read, not just the physical skill, but mentally and on special teams, he's a player that this team really trusts. He, in this situation, as I mentioned, we are talking about Chris Rodriguez Jr. Now, this is a big year for CRod because he was a 6th-round draft pick in 2023, but he spent 2 years on practice squad. He looked pretty solid when he got his opportunities last year as the Titans game, where he found out an hour and a half before kickoff that he was going to be active. He ended up getting, I want to say, 59 yards. And then either in that Falcons or Buccaneers game, I can't remember which one, but in one of those games towards the end of the season, he actually looked like the Commanders' best running back. That was when frustration with Brian Robinson really started to boil to a head. Matter of fact, now that I think about it, maybe it was that Buccaneers game, because I believe that's the game where Brian went 10 carries for 16 yards. I would have to fact check that, but if that is correct, then I would assume that would be the CRod game as well. CRod in this article said that he normally played at 225 to 230 pounds, but after suffering an ankle sprain in his rookie season, he ballooned up to about 235, which is where he stuck, and that was the heaviest of his career. He said that he was talking to the special teams coordinator, Larry Izzo, and while he was on the practice squad trying to find out how he could get elevated, how he could get more opportunities, it was when Izzo told him, hey, some of these other guys, they're just flat out faster than you. And if you can get your speed up, that's probably going to go a long way for you. So what does CRod do in this offseason? He doesn't interpret that as I'm fat, I'm helpless, I'm not going to get opportunities. He says, no, I'm going to put my head down and I'm going to get to work. And that's something that I can really respect, because it's not, it's great to be great. It's great to be great. But if you're low, not getting opportunities, someone says, hey, basically says, hey, dude, you're overweight. Rather than letting that bring him down, he used that as fuel to his fire to say, okay, if this is what I have to do to get on the field, then I'm going to do it. And once again, he did such a great job. The team traded Brian Robinson Jr. Let's not let that be lost anywhere. If CRod doesn't make these changes, then he is not getting on the field, and Brian Robinson is still a Commanders player. But here's what CRod said. He said, I made it my mission to become faster, which is more technique for me. And obviously, I was heavy. He said that he spent 4 to 5 days a week working with a speed coach at 6:30 a.m. during the offseason. He currently weighs 222 pounds, which means that he's down 13 pounds from what he was last season. He also revealed that he hit 20 plus miles an hour on the GPS tracker more times in training camp than he did during any point in his career before. He said he only hit it 3 times last season. I didn't say how much he hit it this time around, but said again that it was the most ever. So you saw the explosiveness on that 40-yard run against the Bengals. The question is, how's it going to work over the course of a 17-game season when you're getting these bumps and bruises, when you're getting a little bit banged up, and also when you are going against defenses that are better than the Bengals? Because respectfully to any Cincinnati fans who might be watching this for whatever reason, your defense is pretty awful. With that being said, CRod, a lot of fans were campaigning for him to get opportunities last year. Again, that Titans game, that Buccaneers game, he actually looked like the Commanders' best pure runner. And now he's coming in, but he's not coming in to be a bell cow. He's still an off-speed pitch, because Eckler's going to be your third down guy. McNichols is the do-it-all. Bill is the one-cut change of pace, not in a slow way, like speed it up. Let's step on the gas here. So for CRod to just get that consistently worn down defense, constant changes with the new upgrades at offensive line, I think it's going to be a really good year for him. And I am excited to see him out in Landover when I do get to Northwest Stadium next Sunday at probably, what time am I going to get there? If the game's at 1, I'll probably get there at 11:30, something like that. Bringing the girl. It's going to be her first time going to a Commanders game. It's actually, believe it or not, she's a massive college football fan. It's going to be her first time going to an NFL game. So me and the lady will be out there with some friends. And guys, I'm going to do my best to get you some content while I am at that game. But as I promised, I will be putting out videos every single day from here on out. Now that the wedding's out of the way, multiple videos per day even. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. To the returning subscribers, you guys are the GOATs. Make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Go to the comment section, leave me your thoughts as always, and I will catch you in the next one. Have a great day.